today's edition of Pegasus Test. On today's edition, we're doing part 8 of our Serpa Holster Problems Test. In our previous edition of the Serpa Holster Problems Test, we did the 1911 in a drop leg platform using the CQC holster mounted to a Blackhawk's drop leg platform. We're basically going to recreate this test in part 8, except the difference is we're using a different firearm. Instead of using a 1911 pistol, we're using a Browning high power. And the reason we're using the Browning high power is it's very M1911-esque in its form and its shape, and it actually fits into the holster really well. And what we're going to test today is if I use a Browning high power in a 1911 style holster, am I creating a problem? As you can see, the safety is on. If my finger inadvertently goes on the trigger, the safety should prevent the hammer from falling. This will go ahead and prove that even if the holster isn't inadvertently causing my finger to go on the trigger, the mechanical safety of the pistol will be a defense against an accident. All right, the first part I'm going to note about using your Browning high power in a 1911 Serpa is this: play. There is a lot of play. The holster is locking onto the pistol correctly, as you can see. You can't pull it out without activating the switch, but there is a lot of play in this. Will this work for carrying your Browning high power? Yes, it will, but a more dedicated holster would be a better solution. Okay, in that previous series of pistol draws, which again was done with hammer back, safety on, you do notice a couple incidents where the gun hung up on the draw stroke. That was trouble getting it out of the holster. And part of the reason for this is the amount of play in the holster with the Browning high power versus the 1911. So even though you can establish a proper firing grip, the gun might not be at the right angle for your finger to fully disengage the latch on the Serpa. Now, to counteract that is to not pull up harder. What the proper counteraction is to push down into the holster, which will do two things. One, it'll properly align the gun, and two, if you're applying pressure with your finger, the flat of your finger on the release lever, it'll cause the lever to release, and when you pull up, the gun will come out cleanly without friction. Now, what does this prove? It simply proves the Browning high power is not the right gun to use in a 1911 Serpa holster. If you're going to use a 1911 Serpa holster, use a 1911. For this next series of tests, as you can see, the hammer is still back. Now the safety is off. If the holster causes my finger to go inadvertently on the trigger, the hammer should fall. As you saw in that sequence with the hammer back, but the safety off, there was no instance where my finger inadvertently went to the trigger. The hammer clearly did not fall. That being said, there are problems with this combination. The Browning high power in a 1911 Serpa holster is a bad thing to do. The gun is dimensionally different, so it rattles around in the holster. It moves around enough while still being retained by the holster that it can be in such a position that when you establish a proper firing grip, you cannot get your finger to the release lever to release. That can lead into the situation of you pulling up with all your might and the gun not releasing. Now, the proper way to counteract this is to push back down in the holster. By doing that, the gun will funnel into position, your finger will fall on the release lever, and when you pull straight back up, out will come the gun without friction. However, let's be honest with one another. In a stressful draw situation, be it a competition, be it a training class, or or God forbid, a real world situation, you're not going to remember to push back down. You're just going to try to pull harder to get that pistol out of the holster. And that's only going to lead to problems. The main one being you can't get the gun out of the holster to use it the way you need to, which will destroy your time in the competition, mess up your training cycle, and probably put you on the losing side of the gunfight if you're using it in a real world situation. So how do you prevent this problem? Get a holster designed for the Browning High Power. Don't make something else do. I would suggest the M12 holster is a good alternative unless you decide you really need a Kydex or polymer holster, and if that case, get a holster made specifically for the Browning High Power. We hope you found this installment of our tests on the Serpa holster problems helpful and informative. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and tune in for future holster test videos.